Today, I'm going to give you 3 interviewing techniques that are going to guide your conversations to deeper, more meaningful places and uncover the most interesting stuff people didn't even know they had inside them. Over the past decade, I've been refining these techniques through podcasting and sales. And I've seen how they can take an ordinary conversation and turn it into something memorable and even a lucrative deal. The podcast we're talking about in this episode is an interview with Polina Pompliano on the James Altucher Show, one of my favorite podcasts. Pompliano is a former Fortune magazine editor and author who's interviewed huge people like Richard Branson, Brene Brown, and Dwayne Wade. So she knows a thing or two about how to talk to people. This is I Learned It on a Podcast, the show where I bring you the fascinating lessons I've learned from podcasts to help you in your business and your life. First, a little context on me. I host Schwarfcast, a business podcast with 250 episodes, and I sell used manufacturing equipment for a living. So I use the conversation techniques I'm going to talk about on a regular basis. I'm naturally curious, and I love to ask questions. So interrupting is something I naturally want to do. But it's an art. You have to know how to do it and when to do it strategically. On the podcast, Polina makes a fascinating analysis of Oprah's interview with Meghan Markle in 2021, the one that made headlines worldwide.
About how dark your baby is going to be?
During the interview, Meghan all of a sudden drops this bombshell about someone in the royal family having concerns about how dark her baby's skin would be. And she was just going to keep going, not realizing the magnitude of what she was saying. But Oprah cuts in and says, "What? Who's having that conversation with you?"
With you?
With Harry.
The interruption creates a moment. That's when the meaningful stuff comes out. That's when it gets interesting. That's when it gets juicy.
At the time it was awkward. I was a bit shocked.
Can you tell us what the question was?
People don't always realize when they're saying the interesting, important stuff. And that's why you have to stop them. Interrupting mindfully is essential to create a great conversation. But you have to make sure you don't just bulldoze over people. That's why I sometimes say, "Sorry, I hope you don't mind if I interrupt you right now." And then I strategically guide the conversation where I want it to go.
I don't know if you remember the last months of the life of the Ayatollah in Iran. The Ayatollah Khomeini. He was
didn't know the conversation was going to go here. This is interesting. When someone's racing through what should be the most interesting part of the story, it could be because they've rehearsed it too many times in other interviews, or they have a specific agenda. But more often than not, they just don't understand that the thing they're saying at the time is the important stuff. And so they'll just keep going until you stop them and direct the conversation to where it needs to go. Sometimes I have questions ready for the right point in the interview to push it to the next level of intrigue. Serendipity happens to be something I'm very passionate about. So often, near the end of the conversation, I'll say something like, "When has serendipity or luck made a huge impact in your life?" It causes people to reflect for a moment. And then it brings out something interesting. If you're getting something out of this, I'd be grateful if you subscribed. We talk about powerful stuff like this every 2 weeks. And if you have an idea for a podcast that I should talk about on the show, I'd love to hear about it. Please send me a message. Back to the show. Another key insight Pompliano brings up is how pre-interviewing or researching your subject can really up the quality of your interview. When I started Schwarfcast back in 2018, I hadn't even considered the idea of doing a pre-interview. I just thought it would kill the spontaneity of the show. But what I've seen is that it's really, really upped the quality. of many episodes. It helps you avoid the boring fluff and gives you a framework. And there's still spontaneity the second time around. It's just the cool stuff that your audience is going to be interested in. Take my recent interview with Chris Armstrong, the machining revivalist. Even though I've known Chris for years, and I talk to him all the time about my CNC Swiss machine issues, I still did a pre-interview. And I was really glad I did.
I really feel that it's my duty to share my talent. You know, it's my duty to help others in general.
I'll say you get better by doing it too.
He told me about breaking up with his former business partner and all the stuff that went wrong at his old company. I knew some interesting things to explore and what to avoid.
Guy, and he's asking questions because he's interested in where this career can take him.
Yeah.
He told me about knowing his old business partner and his wife in junior high. Who in their late 30s has that many significant people that they were friends with in junior high? That was an interesting thing to talk about. I wouldn't have known about that had we not done the pre-interview. But the most important thing I get out of the pre-interview is figuring out what the heck it's going to be about. Why should the audience care about you? So I always ask the person I'm interviewing, what can you say that will enlighten the audience? What do you know that they don't know? And then, when we do it, they're going to give the audience something they'll value, something they're going to want to keep watching. Pompliano brings up an interviewing skill that I've been practicing for years in business negotiations: mirroring. I first heard about mirroring when I read Chris Voss's negotiation book, Never Split the Difference. But until I heard Pompliano talk about mirroring, I hadn't thought about applying it to podcast interviews. Interestingly, I did an awesome interview with Chris Voss and his son Brandon.
I'm going to throw out one more idea to put some context on this, and then I'm going to ask Brandon to jump in. So, and this is why the bargaining skills from kidnapping negotiation directly applicable to the business world.
Mirroring means repeating the last few words a person has just said. For example, maybe I'm in a negotiation with a shop owner who's got an old machine they're thinking about selling. They say to me, "Business has been tough, but I'm not sure about selling this machine." And I say back to him, "Not sure about selling this machine." Now, I could have said, "Well, why don't you want to sell this machine?" But that would sound like an interrogation. Instead, I repeat what they said, and new information comes out. And then he says to me, "Well, it's my father's machine. He bought it 40 years ago, and it still runs great. But we need money more than we need capacity." And then I know this is a lot more than just about money. He's got an emotional attachment to the machine. And then I know where to take the conversation next. And just as important, mirroring makes people feel heard. They know they've been heard because you just recited what they said back to them. And when people feel heard, they feel in control, and they feel relaxed, and they'll trust you and open up to you. And that's essential for a great interview or negotiation. Really prepare for your next interview. Do a pre-interview or research your guest ahead of time. This way, you'll be able to focus on the right topics to make your conversation unique and worthwhile. Finally, mirror your conversation partner. It'll make them feel heard. It'll make them relax, trust you, and open up to you. You have to control the interview. You have to say the things that are going to guide the conversation to where you want it to be. Some guests are going to do your job for you. They're going to be riveting on their own. But you have the power to make those great conversations even better. If you want to keep getting better at real conversations, particularly ones where you disagree with the other person, I recommend you check out my other video, How to Talk to Anyone, Even When You Disagree.